to the April 21st, 2016 meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. To start, I'll ask everybody just to silence their cell phones, and I will introduce the board from your left to right. So at the end is Mark Poole. He's an associate member of the board. Next in line is Ken Foreman. He's the vice chairman of the board. I'm Kimberly Beelan. I'm the chairman of the board. Next in line is TJ Hurry. He's the clerk of the board, followed by Ed Van Kuren, who's a voting member of the board, Paul Murphy, who's a voting member of the board, and Jerry Patamas, who's an associate member of the board. Sari Budrow is our zoning administrator, and Andrade Guy-Shecker is our recording secretary. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the zoning bylaws for the town and considering requests for special permits, variances, and appeals as provided in the bylaws, which have been approved by town meeting and the Attorney General's office for the Commonwealth. Tonight, we just have one public hearing, and it's a continuation from a previous hearing. It is application number 17-16, Megantic Crossing, North Falmouth Highway. And so TJ's already read this into the record. We've already had a public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Group in Yarmouth, representing the applicant, Mr. Galasso. You know him. He is here, and actually I'm just going to turn it over to him for his presentation, and of course we're here for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Make sure we get everything working.
Mark, you want to hit the lights, please? Thank you.
So thank you. Good evening. I'm Michael Galasso. I'm the developer of the project, representing Megantic Crossing LLC. So I want to thank you this evening for your time. And I want to go over some of the issues from the last meeting and some of the responses to those issues. So that's got a short PowerPoint presentation. They were available for any questions. Not sure why that keeps popping up, but let's try moving ahead. So if you recall, this evening we're talking about a modification to an existing 40B that was approved in 2009. The bottom slide is the previously approved project, and up above is the modifications that we're requesting this evening. I'll go through those as we move forward. So the issues from the last meeting was the distribution of the affordable units, where those should be located on the project, the lighting in the driveway, the front yard setback, density, and the number of affordable units. So we'll take those one at a time. So the distribution of the affordable units, if you recall before, we had them located in unit number 5, 6, and 7. We wanted them closer to the play area because we felt that a number of the buyers would have children and they wanted to be close to the play area. We are willing to modify that so that the units, if there are 4, and that still needs to be decided, but if there are 4, it would be units 3, 6, 8, and 11. So more spread out throughout the project. So it would be units 3, 6, 8, and 11. 2 of them are 2 bedrooms, and 2 of them are 3 bedrooms. So the other issue was lighting along the rear alley from the neighbors. And we want to propose 2 possible lighting. On the left is the very more conventional lighting fixture that we see in many subdivisions and many condominium projects in town. And as you know, we're trying to make our project very energy efficient. And on the right is something a little bit more modern that provides power through that solar panel on the top. One of the reasons why we like the light on the right versus the one on the left is that you can really control the density of the light. You can program it to dim at certain hours. You can program it to go off at night. It's much more controllable, but we're open to either one. And this shows where those lights will be located. It's the areas that have the little yellow circle around the dots along the back of the property on the side as you come in. We don't want to overlight the property. We want to keep it to what's really required. And that's really it, and that's why I think we prefer the light fixture that we can control a little bit better. Make sure that there's no glare into the adjacent property on the other side of the railroad tracks. So front yard setback, that seems to be one of the concerns. One of the things that we wanted to do in redesigning the site plan is to reduce the amount of surface parking. If you look at the bottom slide, you can see that all the parking was surface parking, and the parking for the units was right alongside each one of the buildings in a tandem. We just didn't think that was a very good use. We didn't think it was very secure. We think that part of our market's going to be seniors, so we felt that we should include parking garages. And what that did when we included the parking garages is it pushed the buildings a little bit forward in order to compensate for the garage in the one parking spot behind the garage, and then the 16-foot wide, which is a very wide one-way lane. So when you add that up, it ended up pushing the buildings a little bit forward, further than what we had in the 2009 plan. So what we did is we went down 28A and took a look and see what some of our neighbors are. So these are some of the properties on 28A that are even closer than what we're proposing. So this is at 246, 28A. You can see actually this building exceeds over what that red line is, and that's the right-of-way. So it's actually in the right-of-way, part of that building is on the right. There's another one at 166, 28A, 142, Route 28A. These are all on the right-hand, the west-hand side of 28A, the same side of the street that we're on. 838, Route 28A, 734, Route 28A, and these aren't all of them. I didn't want to continue on with the list, but there were a number of them that are close to 28A. As you know, 28A is a very old historic road in many parts of our town, and not only in 28A, but on a number of our streets throughout the community. Palmer Ave, which is also 28. Many of the homes are very close to the road. Here's another one at 700 Route 28A. So the other thing we did is we checked with our town engineer, our traffic engineer, and also with Mass DOT. And this is the traffic flow from the Bourne Town Line to on 28A to Falmouth. So it's Bourne Town Line to the Falmouth Town Line 28A. And you can see that the traffic has actually gone down. From 2014, 8,875. 2013 at the same in June, 9,743. So traffic on 28A is actually going down. As a comparison, this shows you what the traffic is on 151, which is the same type of road as 28A. It's a single lane in each direction. So we also talked to Mass DOT. We talked to, let me pull up her name, Pat Hasner. She's a District 5 Project Development Engineer, and she says there are no plans at this time to widen 28A. The traffic doesn't warrant it, and the only thing that would warrant it if there was a large amount of additional development in and around the area that would be impacted. But all indications are, from looking at traffic counts, that there's no plans to widen 28A. So the next issue was on our list is density. As you know, we are asking to increase the number of units from 10 to 12. And housing policy number 1. This is the housing policy that was approved by town meeting in our local comprehensive plan. And it talks about Falmouth will allow for greater infill residential density where appropriate. So what does where appropriate mean? Density where public infrastructure can support it. As you know, we're on a transit line. There's public transit that stops right in front of our building. Roadway locations. We wouldn't want to put density in areas where it's in the middle of a neighborhood that is low density, and it doesn't have the roadway capacity to handle that additional density. Obviously, Megantic Crossing, the roadway has enough capacity to handle additional density. School capacity, we're going to talk about that in a second. These are all things that you will look at in order to determine whether or not you should permit additional density. Does it abut business and employment centers? And in this particular case, the project was supported with the additional density and the setbacks by both the planning board and the selectmen. So part of this is the economics of 40Bs. We need the market rate units to help support and subsidize the affordable units. So for every unit that we lose that's market, we can't provide the affordable units because the economics don't work out. This project right now is below the threshold that DHCD sets for profitability, which is 15%. We're below that at 12.5%. So we're on that edge. Losing units would really jeopardize the number of affordable units we could do. So here's what's happening at the North Falmouth Elementary School. And why is this important? Well, enrollment has dropped dramatically over the years. And so there's obviously capacity at the school. There was one time up to 522 pupils. It's now down to 370. As schools start to lose enrollment, there's discussion about closing schools, consolidating schools. I know no one in North Falmouth wants that to happen. So there is capacity at the North Falmouth Elementary School to handle additional children. That means that there is ability to add some density to the area. So there was also a lot of discussion last time about our project compared to other projects. And I want you to take a look at the Kelly Green condo, 21 Pine Street. Now, 21 Pine Street in North Falmouth is a very heavily trafficked road. People use it as a shortcut from Great Harbors to get to the lights and get out of that part of North Falmouth. It's a narrow road, and if you look at the density, there was 6.5 dwelling units per acre, but the number of bedrooms per acre is is higher than what we're proposing. So we're proposing 7.05. That's 0.45 dwelling units per acre, higher than what was built at Pine Street. And Pine Street doesn't have public transportation, doesn't have a road capacity. So I think that where we're proposing to put a little extra density, and including in that additional density, additional affordable units, makes sense. We're also located next to a business zone, B3. B3 allows density up to 6 dwelling units per acre, with up to 8 with a special permit. We're in between those two, between 6 and 8. And the other thing I want you to notice on here too, our property is just to the north of where it says B3, is that there is a buffer between our property and the residential property to the west. We've got the federal government that owns a strip that's about 40 feet wide. We have Mass DOT for the railroad tracks that owns a buffer that's another 60 feet. So from our back property line to the next property line to the west is about 100 feet. So again, here's the goals of the comprehensive plan element talking about housing that's been approved by the town meeting. Falmouth will meet the housing needs of its entire community. Number one, will allow for greater infill residential density where appropriate. We feel that this fulfills that goal. So housing affordability is a big issue everywhere. I just thought I'd show you this graph. I was surprised to see that we're right behind Massachusetts as far as the highest median price of homes. People can't afford to live here. This is very interesting. So if you see on the top, that was the median income for Falmouth in 2015, $80,300. If you look in 2016, we're $77,100. What's that mean? That means that people who are living here are earning less income. Means that they can't afford to live here as much. They can't afford to buy housing. We've got an issue here. This is going in the wrong direction. It also affects what we can sell our homes for. Now that the income is lower, that means we have to lower our sales price to compensate for that. That's a good thing, but at the same time, it's not a good thing when our household income is going down. Here's all the letters of support we have for the project. Not only these entities support our project, we also held meetings out in the community that we organized ourselves. We sent out notices to people within 300 feet, invited them to a meeting at the Falmouth Elementary School, discussed the project with them. We also met with the North Falmouth Business Association, Village Association. So here's the letter of approval by the selectmen approving the modifications in the additional unit from the Planning Board, from the Affordable Housing Committee, and also from DHCD. So in summary, here's what we believe are the reasons to approve the modifications. We improved the building design to be in conformance with the Megansett neighborhood character. We showed you that at our last meeting, that we have buildings that look like they've been in Megansett for a long time. We eliminated the large triplex buildings. There were 2 triplex buildings which had interior units that were going to be for the affordable. All our units are duplex, so there is no interior unit to any of them. We placed a bedroom in the 3-bedroom units on the ground floor. All our units are visitable. It means that handicapped people can get into all our units. We added the attached parking garages. We reduced the height of the buildings from what was previously approved. We added the community garden. We added covered bus shelter and the larger children's play area. We have, so talking about density, we believe it's similar to the other approved 40B projects. It's not that different from the Pine Street project right down the street. We're located next to a business zone, and we're separated from existing residential by the federal government land and the railroad. The reduction in the setbacks supported by the narrowness of the lots and the existing setbacks that are shown along 28A. Our project is more energy efficient, has more energy efficient features than any prior approved 40B. What allows us to do that too is the density. If we have to reduce units, we won't be able to amortize the cost of the energy efficiency over the project. These are net zero energy ready homes, which means that with renewable energy, they're self-sufficient. We exceed the number of 40B required affordable units. We meet the requirements of the town housing production plan, which says that we should be building 72 affordable workforce housing units a year. We're not even coming close to doing that. Achieves the goal of the town meeting approved housing element. The modifications have been supported by the Selectmen and Planning Board and the Affordable Housing Committee. So in closing, what we're trying to do with Megantic Crossing is to help solve a big problem that we've had in our community for many years and on the Cape. We're providing housing that our workforce can afford, and this project is about the people on the other side of these walls, the people out there who desperately want to remain in our community and are looking for us to help them achieve that. So I want to thank you, and we'd appreciate your support for the modifications we're requesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me see if anybody has questions. Paul?
No, I don't.
Ed? TJ? Okay. Jerry, I don't want to leave you out. But
I'm not a voting member, right?
No, I know. I didn't know. Mark will ask questions. I wanted to double check.
Really? No, certainly.
Yeah. Mark, do you have any questions?
Yeah, one or two.
Okay.
Michael, can you remind me, is there going to be a covenant signed or some sort of official paperwork designating the association's responsibility for like snow removal, snow plowing, lighting maintenance, fence maintenance, septic maintenance, all the things that make, is that going to be?
We have to put together the rules and regulations, the bylaws for the condominium association. Those have to get approved by both the town and by DHCD and a 40B project. So all those issues will be addressed in there. The one thing about the septic system here is it's a very low maintenance system. It's something that's been approved by the health department, and basically there's very few or no moving parts in it. And as far as snow removal, and I know somebody's written a letter about snow removal, but one of the areas that we have to place snow, because that did come up on this project, you brought it up too, is not only at the end to the south, but also down the north end where there's the garden. So in the winter, obviously, we're not going to have anything growing there, so we've got a big area that we can push snow to.
My second question would deal more towards the unit that's expressly known as the 110% AMI unit.
Yes.
Is there going to be a similar deed, registration with the three that are going to be 80% that has to be recorded?
Yes.
Is there some sort of recording mechanism that will hold that 110 AMI dwelling in perpetuity?
Yes, these will all be in perpetuity. There will be a deed restriction recorded against each one of those properties to require that they be affordable, 3 of them at 80%, the other one at 110 in perpetuity.
And then the hope is that that 110% unit could be modified in the future given affordable trust fund money.
We made a commitment to the selectmen, and one of them's here this evening, that we would apply for some financial assistance for that particular unit to try to bring it down to 80%. And as soon as we are through this process, then they will accept an application to do that.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Ken?
Yeah, I had a number of questions. One thing you mentioned in your presentation, actually, was that the lane is 16 feet wide, which you consider to be pretty wide. Is that being required by the fire department, or could that, so there's no possibility that could be narrowed?
We really haven't, I don't want to use the word challenge, but it is being required by the fire department. Fire trucks are between 9 and 10 feet wide. Typically, they like to see, lanes as wide as they possibly could be. It is for a one-way lane. Sometimes if they're too wide, it creates traffic going too fast down there, and we can put in the bumps and so on. But it is a possibility that we could talk to them about reducing that down even 2 feet. And I think where you're headed is then can we move the buildings back?
Exactly.
Obviously, we would try to do it.
The other thing that occurred to me when I was both looking at the plan and, so when I visited the site, I mean, a lot of traffic rushing right past these buildings, which if I were a potential purchaser, I would consider undesirable. It's noisy and so forth. Was there any thought given to sort of flipping the design around and having the driveway run, right parallel to the roadway and have the buildings in the back of the lot?
Sorry, has been involved in a number of discussions we've had with the town engineer, and we actually came up with some other concepts besides the loop road, which were not approved by the town engineer and the fire department. So we looked at a number of different scenarios soon after we acquired the property for circulation, but it seems as though everyone was tied into that road in the back.
Mm-hmm. And then I had some questions really about the need for the additional units in terms of, so we have a fairly simple set of financial data from you in the pro forma, and I'm just wondering if you can give me a better sense of the financial need for these extra units.
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is just the cost of construction has gone up. Two, making these buildings energy efficient as we do want to make them. And some of that will help answer that noise situation with the road too, with windows that are more durable than windows in the past and heavier insulation, things like that. The costs are higher than a normal project. The requirement to make one of those units 110% needs to be offset by a market rate unit. And that's really how these work, is you try to balance the market rate units with the number of affordable units in order to make the project feasible. And we're just at that cusp with the 12.5% profit margin. And that number is going to go down because now we have to lower our sales prices because of that graph that I showed you with household income going down.
So that actually, do you have some pricing that you can?
Yeah, the pricing, I think, was in the schedule that I
probably
previously
was,
gave
but-
you. And
Yes.
what was proposed to the selectmen, we presented this back in January, was that the 80% two-bedroom units were going to be $221,000, the 80% three bedrooms, $251,000, and the one unit at 110%, $345,000.
And what are the market rates?
The two bedrooms are at $495,000 and the three bedrooms at $595,000.
$595.
Yep.
And so, how does this compare with the Cubby proposal?
Well, Cubby proposed on 2000, and I don't have all the numbers from Cubby's proposal, so I could give you a comparison line by line.
So your buildings, I mean, one of the other things that you've done, you've added the garages, which is great, but my understanding is that accounts for maybe a little over 40% of the increase in footprint.
Yes.
So you've made these units bigger.
Yep, they've been made larger, and we also now have a bedroom on the ground floor, which were all upstairs before.
Mm-hmm.
So the area that unit covers is larger because of that, and we just feel that that's a marketing necessity in these days to have a bedroom down on the ground floor.
So in the process, you've gone from, you've doubled the lot coverage by structures compared to the cubby. I mean, you're at, I'm just comparing these. This is a
Yep.
modification, so how does it compare to cubby? Go from 12.3 to 24.6%
Yeah, it is an
coverage.
increase.
And I suspect our pricing is higher, considerably higher.
And we've taken away surface parking.
That's an improvement, no question. Going to duplexes is an improvement. In the end, it seems like we're upscaling this in some sense, and I'm concerned that the location doesn't merit the upscaling, that I'm not, is there marketing data that says someone's gonna pay $600,000 to live on this road?
Yes, that's how we set our prices, comps in the area. And also, there's documentation that shows that homes that are built to net zero ready standards actually demand close to 20% higher prices than those that are not. And if we weren't building homes that were net zero ready, we'd be building homes that were obsolete by the time we're done with them. This is the way that every home should be built, and we're strong believers
I
in
don't
that.
disagree with you. The total number of bedrooms in this proposal versus cubby,
Same,
same.
30 bedrooms. And that's why when I showed that graph of comparing it to Pine Street, that we're actually below the Pine Street density per bedroom.
And if I'm remembering, it was, I think your 3 bedrooms are like 1,700 square feet?
Yes,
is it?
roughly, yeah.
And the 2s,
About 14.
14. So that, okay, I think for now,
Sure.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Yeah.
I have some questions as
Sure.
well. I just wanted to check, just want to make sure your application's complete. You're also requesting a waiver from lot coverage, the lot coverage requirements for
Yes.
structures?
Yes.
Okay, I just think that was omitted from,
The lot coverage was omitted from the waiver by structures,
by structures, yes.
not by overall, but structures, he doubled, so
Right.
he needs that waiver.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up.
I have a number here, I just, so you're showing on the landscaping or the imagery that's shown up there, you're showing some landscaping and sidewalks being constructed basically in the right of way, is that true?
No, the goal is that the landscaping, the Mass DOT in the right-of-way, they're very restricted what we can do in there. So anything that we want to do, whether it's sidewalks or clearing trees, requires their approval. Our goal is to keep it as natural as possible, and I think as we all walked it last time and saw, there are a number of great trees that we want to preserve as much as possible that we can, and clean out a lot of the undergrowth. And I know there was a letter regarding, do we need concrete sidewalks going out to the main sidewalk? No, we don't. So we're open to changing that to more of a path. We do want to get the children that we hope will live there safely out to the street and to the bus that will pick them up. But that doesn't need to be achieved by put in place concrete sidewalks that go through that area.
But that's something that this board doesn't have jurisdiction at this point to approve, right? Because that's not your property.
But I believe you could still put that in the approval, that it would be natural and, yeah, even though you may not have final jurisdiction over it, it's something that we would present to Mass DOT and say, look, this is what we got approval for, this needs to stay as natural as possible and no concrete walkways through it. And that's what we would do. And we agree with it.
I apologize, I just need to go through some of these. Okay, so at the last meeting, I think I asked for either preliminary plans or something showing the deck on the side of the structures. I just want to know why you haven't submitted those.
We talked to our architect on it, and he didn't feel that it was appropriate from his standpoint to put the patios on the side and having the neighbors sort of look at each other in that direction. Just thought that the front porches are integral part to the architecture of the building and to the style of these buildings too, especially in the McGansett area, and many porches along the front of the buildings and other areas along 28A. So I think just from an aesthetic standpoint, from his principle, he didn't believe that was an appropriate solution. And that maybe there may be other ones to the front setback issue, such as trying to reduce the width of the travel lane behind the building.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. You're referring to them as front porches. So as we look at
Facing 28A, they are
facing
front.
28, they're
They
considered
are farmers'
front
porches.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's also a deck in the back too.
Okay. And on those front porches, is there structure above those front
Yes.
porches?
Yes. Yeah.
There is.
Yep.
So over the overhang?
Yes.
So it's not just the porch that's in that that is right up against the 3-foot setback, it's actually the second floor?
It's the second floor. Yep.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll probably have some other questions, but I do want to ask you, I know that you said that the engineers and some other town officials were kind of stuck to this loop road. Is it possible to put the loop road in the front? And so you keep the same kind of scheme, but you turn the structures?
So, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that when we took over the project, we had a number of meetings for his office with town engineers, and anything that we came up with besides the loop road was denied from their standpoint. A lot of it just had to access for the fire equipment to get to the buildings, and over the fire department. So Peter was saying that whether or not your board has the authority to reduce the width of that lane in the back from 16 to 14, allowing us to push the buildings back. His feeling is that you do. I think, not to disagree with my attorney, but I just don't know whether or not what the fire department's concern is in having it 16 feet. That is wide for a one-way lane behind a building. Typically, you see them somewhere around 10.
The fire department recommended the 16-foot.
Thank you. Okay, so those are my questions for now. I may have others. Sari, do you have any other questions? Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I have a
Yes.
thought,
Yes.
Okay?
which is that there's nothing, so I can understand how the fire department, especially at the entrance, might want 16 feet to make the turn. But once they're behind there, it's a straightaway. And I don't know why that lane couldn't be narrowed there to achieve the further setback.
Yeah, so once they swing in, curve in,
Exactly.
and then they're back. And that's where, obviously, we need to push the buildings back in that area.
Yeah. So that might be something in between that would make everyone equally unhappy.
We'd like to make everyone equally happy.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Michael, I don't know if it was ever brought up, but I reviewed it for comparison's sake. Gubby's, can you talk about the intention of that southwest corner emergency egress with the breakaway chain?
There's a requirement on Tuppy's old project, so we may be able to talk to a little bit more, but that's an easement, again, for emergency access. So maybe the thought was that if they couldn't make that curve to get back there, they could come in through the property, which was owned by Cuppy too, to get to the rear of the building quicker.
And is that a viable consideration that you're putting forward, or no?
It's there, we still have that easement. The easement goes along with the property. So when we acquired the property, that easement was transferred to us, so we still have that easement.
Okay.
That's a good point.
And is the intent as the applicant to, I think it was condition 15, to have the breakaway chain and all
Yes.
that stuff?
Yeah, so we would still abide by that condition.
You're all set?
Mhm.
Okay. Just another question. The fence in the rear,
Yes.
that's proposed at 3 feet? Is that-
Yeah, because it sits on top of a retaining wall. Okay, so there's a guardrail then there's a retaining wall, and then the 3-foot privacy fence that would sit on top of that.
Okay, so if I'm, I guess, standing level, how high, what's the top of the?
It varies from 5 to 7 feet because of the slope going downward.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, do you have any? Everybody's all set? Okay, all right, let me see if there's any public questions. Let's start, is there anybody here to speak in favor of this project?
To do with the project.
Good evening. My name is Trish Mara, and my family and I have lived on Chester Street in Megansett in North Falmouth for over 55 years. I'm a retired special needs school teacher for Falmouth Public Schools. I worked at North Falmouth Elementary, T-Ticket, and Mullen Hall, and throughout my 20 years of working for the town, knew how many teachers wished that there was more affordable housing available in our town. There were so many colleagues of mine in the past that commuted over the bridge and made their day much more difficult. I've reviewed the revisions to the plan and support all of the modifications that have been brought forth. As for density, living in Megansett for as long as I have, my lot is only 4,624 square feet. Most are under 5,000 square feet, so the setbacks are 10 to 20 between homes, and my front porch is the exact width or length of my car from the street. And it's part of what a community neighborhood is. You sit on the front porch, as we all do in our neighborhood, and neighbors go by and they could do that there. And I just think the front porch offers aesthetically from the road, even driving by on 28A, when you look at this project, it's just a very welcoming project aesthetically. The buildings are beautiful. Although you may think that I'm prejudiced because of my relationship with Mr. Glasso, I've had the opportunity to see all of his affordable projects between San Diego, New Bedford, Brockton, and I think what stands out mostly about each of his projects is his dedication to the neighborhood where that project is, and his dedication to the community on a whole. All of his projects are top-of-the-line materials, energy efficient, all of it. He takes great care there. He could have just built the project as it was in 2009. It definitely would have saved a lot of time and efforts, but his efforts are in the neighborhood, and changing the design of this project to match the Megansett houses, I think is something of great value. Michael, as you know, is also the chairman of the EDIC and presently putting together the solar project on the landfill and changing the bus station to be better for the community. These are just two community improvements that he's working on. I think that Megansett Crossing is now a much better project because of those changes that he's made, and I ask you to approve those modifications for him tonight.
Thank you. If you want to speak in favor, and I would just remind you, and I didn't say in advance, so if you could limit your comments to 2 minutes, that's our board policy, and also speak to the project on hand, the modifications. We obviously are aware of the town's need for affordable housing. We hear about it, we deal with these projects, so if you could speak to this project, and we've heard that Mr. Glasso has an excellent reputation as well, so that's been presented. So anything new that you could have would be great.
Well,
If you could provide your name.
I'm Patty Haney. I've been involved in affordable housing here in town for a very long time. And unfortunately, I am going to mention the affordability, the difference between the two plans. The first plan, the affordable units are all sandwiched in the middle. That's kind of like sitting in the middle seat in an airplane. And that's where the affordables usually are. You have no windows to look out. The new plan has 2 units in each building. You've got windows. It looks like everybody else's. It's not, you know, the affordable unit. Adding the 2 extra units, if you look at it, he's adding 2 extra units, making 50% of them affordable. We're getting a whole other affordable unit if you add those 2 extra units. So I think it's a win. This is a much better design than the original one, and I support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. You just have to.
Nancy Hayward, West Falmouth. I've lived in West Falmouth for 42 years. So I'm familiar with things like roads, intersections. I was not here for the prior meeting, and I have the minutes from the prior meeting. I did not have time to follow up on a couple of items that are mentioned in the minutes. And I presume that these are settled matters, but things that stuck in my brain were discussions about fire protection, fire plugs, that everything was on the other side of 28A. And I presume this issue of water and other things has been resolved and is not relevant to the zoning board, or is it relevant to the zoning board? I see in the minutes that there are engineering notes in the file. I did not read those. Fire department had 2 concerns which aren't listed, but the fire department, it may be the turning and the width of the road, and it also says water department notes in the file. So I don't know what the water department said about that. And I don't know, I am totally in favor of affordable housing, and generally speaking, in favor of having affordable housing here. I don't know whether this issue of everything being on the other side of 28A, somehow having to get into this development, I have no idea if that comes under the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I understand that I'm supposed to draw a very close box on issues to which I can speak. Those are questions that I haven't had answered, and if your answer to me is, oh, please go read the notes that are in the file from these other departments, that's all. It's mostly questions. I am in favor of affordable housing, but the ancillary, can you tell me if this is a state road, so any activities concerning the road, the tearing up of the road, the improvements of the road, all is directed to the Department of Transportation in Boston. So that will all be handled very nicely outside of any zoning issues. Is that correct?
The 28A is a state road,
All right.
and I think Sari will
Curb-
answer your other question.
Curb cuts have to be approved by the state, so the curb cut in and out have to be approved by the state. As far as all the other town departments looking at this, the meeting that was held right after Mr. Galasso submitted the modifications, the engineering department was there, spoke on drainage. Mr. Galasso moved the water, the fire hydrant. They discussed the water lines going in. The fire department had their input. Everybody has looked at this.
All right.
And changes were made based on comments.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this?
Hi, my name is Ed Curley. I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Committee in town. And I'm here just to let you know that Michael Asso has worked with our committee, has shared his ideas with this committee on this project for more than 2 years. We've written in support of this project, and we're just really impressed with the high quality of the plan and the way the affordable units fit in so seamlessly, and with the rest of them, it'll be a real win for the community in so many ways to have units that are available for $250,000 range in Falmouth. That's what we need more of, and so we hope that you'll support it too.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition?
I'm in the same position. And
Okay.
I have some questions. I also have a handout, since everybody asked tonight about the comparison of the two projects, so I have.
Patty,
this.
could you state your name, please?
Oh, yes, I will. I'm Patricia Johnson, and I live in North Falmouth.
Thank you.
And I've lived there for, a long time. I have this that compares the two.
Why don't you give them to TJ and he'll stamp them in and then we
Okay,
can
good.
distribute. Thank you.
Good. There you go. And it answers a lot of questions just in a graphic way.
Stamp. We'll pass them down.
Comparing the two projects.
Do you have a copy for Peter too, by the way? By
Do an extra
Peter
one for
Freeman?
me and Michael?
Peter
We
Freeman.
why don't we just give
Yeah, I
him
have. I have.
that one?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Wait
you.
a second, there's some, oh, yes, okay, it says received on the bottom.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have that. And that's just an item, item by item
Can I
list.
see one, please?
And last time I was here, I was asked by somebody to come to represent them, and this time I have the same wonderful opportunity since Virginia Valiella, I think she sent an email saying she was not able to come tonight and that I would bring up her questions.
Her letter was submitted to the file, and we need written approval by Virginia. She did say she spoke to you,
Yes,
but her comments are in the file,
great, great.
and I forwarded them to the board as well.
And I'm here to bring up a couple of issues, points that should be made. I would like the board right up front, I'll just say, I'd really like you to deny this project outright because you still have a 40B left that can be modified maybe to reduce the density. The density is one major concern I have. The difference in the density of the structures and the lot coverage over Cubbies is really big. The overlot coverage, lot coverage, 40% is allowed. With Cubbies, the Holly Park, it was 42%, and it is now 55% by my calculation. I think that's really bad. The Cubbies you granted a 23-foot waiver on the front yard setback. And this time, if you accept the plans as they are done, it's a 32-foot waiver. And that, to me, is wow. Not only that, I think Ken Foreman brought up the fact that the market rate prices are quite significant. And with I have the 2015, and I know if they could put up the slides again that showed the traffic count. The traffic count, I took the 2015 traffic count, and I couldn't read that because it was a little fuzzy, and I don't know if he used the 2015 or the 2014 numbers, because there are 8, and this is what the Cape Cod Commission, for the Bourne-Falmouth town line on Route 28, it's 8,140 cars on an average day. On a peak summer day, it's 10,711 cars. That's 10,000 cars going by there. And a peak summer hour is 924 cars an hour. Right out there, and you're going to allow them to be 3 feet back from where the front yard, where the property line is. It's insane. So if you allow this project with what Michael has suggested, I think the discussion about moving the houses back a little bit makes me feel better. The speed limit, which wasn't mentioned for these 10,000 cars, that's a 45-mile-an-hour zone. So a lot of those cars are going by at 50 miles an hour out there. It's like, I'm not sure who wants to sit on a front porch and see cars going by at that speed. It's not like Megansett. There are very few cars in Megansett where a proponent spoke for this. I think, and the average price, I don't know, I just hope there's a market. I also think on the clearing of the town to state right-of-way, the road layout, not only the big trees have to be kept, some of the smaller trees have to be kept because they provide a buffer for people, that might be using the front porch, or so it's not just the big trees, it's the smaller ones. I'm also concerned about there's no place for snow. There really isn't. You can't, and there's also quite a big grade, let me point. I think it's a rather steep grade.
Patty, can you just take the mic too if you're going to be away? Thank you. For the benefit of the people at home. Thank you.
Pull it forward. There we go.
Thank you.
I can ask Mike, I think I tried to read this grade up here on the access road. It's fairly steep. And one of the reasons that Cubby's, his driveway access was down in here, so that it didn't have such a steep, I just can't imagine if we had a winter like last winter, not this one that we just had, because it would be practically impossible to live there, I think, with that amount of snow and having to get rid of the snow. So I think that's a big issue with me, because parking is too tight. So I like the idea of trying to move the buildings back. If you're going to approve this, move the buildings back. I don't know about flipping them. That doesn't make much difference to me. But, and I think the other thing is try to reduce the number of units back to what Holly Park had. So those are my points.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. Appreciate
And
it.
I had a couple of questions that I'd like to answer.
Oh, sure. What are the questions? We'll try to get an answer. You can direct them
Good.
to us.
Great.
Oh. Do you have questions?
Yeah, the one was on the traffic count, because I couldn't read
Oh.
up here. I moved to the front so I could see and hear. So, because
They're all 2015.
it's so small. That's okay, I'll look at it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patty.
These are 2014 and mine were 2015. So they didn't go down, I can tell you.
Thank
And
you.
one other comment.
Yes.
The pictures that he showed of 28A, many of the houses that are up closer are in the lower numbers of, they're the beginning of 28A down near, below West Falmouth, those lower numbers. They are old houses, they are close to the road. And I'm not so sure that that part of the road is an 80-foot layout, whereas this is an 80-foot layout, state road. So that was my comment about those pictures.
Thank you, Patty. Is anyone else here to speak in opposition to this project? Okay. So do you want to have some board discussion right now? I think that may make sense, and then we'll, of course, allow you to say some more, Michael. Who wants to go first? Any takers?
Well, I mean, I I think the developer did a nice job. The 3-foot setback doesn't bother me. I mean, this is an 80-foot prescribed width, which is, you know, I can't think of any road in town that's actually been constructed to 80 feet. So it's of no consequence as far as I'm concerned. But I just like the project as proposed. I think it looks great. I like the architectural details, and I'm completely comfortable with it.
Ed, do you have any thoughts?
I think it should be pushed back. The road should be put in the front. And then work with the fire department. Maybe reduce the straight stretch to, you know, a couple of feet smaller, narrower.
All right, so you would say push back the structures and put the loop in the front if
Yeah,
possible?
right, yeah. I just can't see sitting that close to the traffic.
Okay. TJ, do you think?
I'm just a little concerned about the density of the project with the overall lot coverage, but, I mean, overall, I think it's a good project. It's put in a lot of time and thought into it, and I just think it's overall a good project. And in terms of the road or anything like that, or the recommendation from the fire department, they asked to push the fire hydrant to the back of the property, and it's tight, but that demonstrates with the fire department that they'll be able to get their vehicles back there.
My main concern, so first of all, you know, compared to the original Covey proposal, this is an improvement for sure. The only thing that I feel is I'm not convinced that we can't do this with 10 units. And why do we need those extra 2 units? One of them is going to be quasi-affordable, which of course is a plus, but what we are doing to achieve that is we're pushing these buildings so close together, they're only 18 feet apart. We're getting rid of, you know, if we want to, if I was going to buy a $600,000 home on a busy highway, I'd want a little space between myself and the neighbor. I just feel that this is not going to work. And I'd like to know from the pure construction point of view what the economics are, why it can't be done with 10 units. You know, I calculate the construction costs to be $350 a square foot. Does that sound about right, based on the sale? Well, I don't know if that's construction cost. That's the sales cost, okay? Square footage divided by the price, and that seems high. I think in terms of the roadway, I could see the fire department might have required that it be in the back, but I do believe it could be narrowed up, and I think the proponent has agreed.
They didn't require it in the back, they just recommended a 16-foot. They're the ones who
Okay.
requested the 16-foot width.
So, you
And a
know,
lot of it had
one
to
way
do
to
with turning
achieve a
radiuses.
little separation from the highway is to do what Ed suggests, which is to have the road in the front and still maybe have it a little narrower and get at least 5 feet between the edge of the road and the right-of-way, the boundary, and then you've got the road width, and before you even get to the building. So that, if I were living there, I'd rather look out into the woods than onto the road. But those are my thoughts.
Mark?
Well, I would echo everybody else's sentiments. The two sticking points, obviously, is the front setback and the density. The front setback issue to me isn't that, I mean, based on what we know today, the day that the application was set, there's a good distance between the road and the proposed units. Yes, The state owns 3 foot, however, it's been demonstrated that there's no intent by the state at the time to widen. Yes, they could, but until that time, I think, personally, the exchange that I would ask the board to consider is it worth putting somebody underneath shelter, or are we going to live in fear of the road widening? So that's my point about the front setback. The second point, the density, that's a pretty, I mean, I'm not a marketing analyst or anything like that. Ken might be bringing up a good point about, maybe we can cut down on 1 unit, but as the application is represented, I would say that's pretty concerning. However, just like Michael said, we're allowed to approve a reduction or an increase in density where appropriate. And I listened pretty carefully to the comparison of why it makes sense here and why it wouldn't elsewhere with other 40Bs or potential 40Bs. It made sense to me. Being on a traffic area that's serviced by bus pickup, close to schools, I think when you go into the criteria of where appropriate, that kind of rings true for me. So, however, given the fact that it's 50% total lot coverage, where it was only 42 before, that's a pretty significant increase. So I'm a little on edge there.
Okay. Well, I'll echo the sentiments, I guess, of everyone. I hate the 3-foot setback, to be honest. And I hate it even more now, knowing that the structure is above the porch. That was something that I said last time. I think it's way too close, and I think to sit here, and I respect your opinion, Mark, but I think it's short-sighted to say, well, right now, the width of the road is the width of the road. And I think that if there is any expansion, 3 feet is just leaving virtually no setback. I just, on a major road with a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit, I think 3 feet is too minimal. I agree, I think potentially, and I know that there are going to be significant costs associated with this, but the loop could be in the front. I think kind of reorienting the project would solve a lot of issues as far as setback. I also dislike completely the notion that they would be clearing some of this land in front. I think it provides a nice buffer for the properties across the street. And I also would just say, going out to the site, which we all did, seeing it staked, you can really see that these are substantially closer than any other buildings, even the commercial buildings along 28A, substantially closer than the houses across the street. And they're bigger, obviously, so substantially bigger structures than the houses across the street, and they're closer to the road. So that 3-foot setback to me is a non-starter. It just, if it has the 3-foot setback, I can't vote for the project. The other thing is the density. I'm with Ken. I would like to see 10 units, if you could do 10 units versus the 12. I mean, I certainly support the net zero and the energy efficiency, but perhaps there's a trade-off. Perhaps there's energy efficient components to the project. Maybe it's not a net zero project, but there's something where there's a balance between cost, so that you don't need to add those additional 2 units. I appreciated, this goes back to the setback, Patty's point about those other structures that were shown close to 28A. Those are old structures, and they're not close to this project. So I did appreciate that point. I just want to make sure I'm saying I mean, I do want to say, because I know I sound like I'm coming very strongly against this, I just hate the 3 feet. I think this project is a lot. I like the duplexes. I like the variety of styles. I do like the components of energy efficiency. I just think that there should be a balance between that and the density. And I just think I think that there needs to be some more green space and some more space between the units. I guess that's all I have to say. I don't know if anybody else has any feelings or you want to give it, yeah.
No, I mean, I agree with you, and I'd like to, from the pure economic point of view, know exactly, we don't have very much detail, and I think we need to approve the 12 units, I would need to understand completely why it's justified from an economic point of view. Because, you're paying to build a market rate unit, and you're paying to build an affordable unit. So they're not really getting all that much advantage for the project-wide, right? Whereas if you had your 10 units,
I would just, the presentation, maybe this isn't something I'm understanding properly, was that possibly that fourth unit would be 110%. Is it definitely 110%?
Definitely is.
It's definitely 110%.
At this
We're
point,
having
it's,
board discussion.
at this point, it's 110%.
I know, but the hearing's still open.
He's going to look
It
into
is, but we're having board discussion. I'll ask for your
I'm not-
comment.
That's fine.
Okay,
I raised my
thank you.
hand. I'm not interrupting. The hearing's open.
Okay.
He's going to, depending on this board's decision, he stated it might be able to be,
80%. So it's
Right.
definitely 110%.
at this point in time, it's 110, yes.
and it could be mandated to be 80%.
Right.
Again, so we do gain, if they can accept 80%, then, we're gaining on the plus side, and a whole extra affordable unit, but on the minus side, we have these 2 extra units over the Cubby project, and I just don't think the site is large enough to support it.
I would also, the total building percentage, so in the Holly Park condominium, so the Cubby project, total building square footage was 14,500 square feet. This is on the information sheet provided by the applicant. And those were triplexes, I believe. So, in these.
2 of them were
Two of them
triplexes,
were.
2 of them were duplexes.
So then I guess I don't know what the 14,500 is referring to in that case. But then these are proposed at 22,800. So even if you include the 3,500 square foot garages, that brings you up to 18,000. So there's still 4,800 square feet additional just living space. That's not attributable to. So
Right, that's what I'm saying.
significant,
Yeah. Mark did that analysis early on, which is that only about 43%, was it, Mark, of the increase in square footage in this project is due to the addition of the garages. So they're making larger units, which they're also, are more costly. If I had $600,000 to spend, I don't think I would spend it on one of these. If I could buy a perfectly nice single-family home somewhere else in Falmouth for that. Not a busy, road where people are driving by at 50 miles an hour.
It's through testimony, we heard that the profit margin was going to be 12.5, and I think that's similar in a sense of Cubby. Juggling units down to from what currently is presented and taking away 1 or 2 will have an effect. And you had noted that, or actually Kimberly noted that instead of 0 energy, it might pop up to 25% energy efficient. The point, and I think it is a marketable draw to have 0 energy efficiency units. So I'm thinking we're probably thinking about this too much in that vein. Is it our job to do that, is what I would say. I mean, you either can accept the project the way it's been given with suggestions, asking if things were considered, But at this point in time, it is what it is. And are there going to be compromises? Because we certainly, you know, where appropriate is two big words that need really to be considered.
I think that's why the board's discussing it, to give the applicant an idea of what they're looking at.
I mean, we have an approved project at Cubby,
Right.
so we don't need to grant the modification. If we're gonna modify it, I think it should be, done appropriately.
The energy efficiency that is the plan is, are all those garages fitted with outlets for energy efficient cars?
I think it says 12 electric car charging stations.
I just don't, I mean, that might be one thing that you might want to ask the
I
applicant
think it's
about.
mostly I'm looking at solar panels, right? Those are the
Right.
expensive part of this.
They're what?
Am I looking at solar panels on those roofs, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, I don't think having an outlet for a vehicle is.
I'm just suggesting that's one thing that you might want to, I don't know if everybody's
It's
going
the
to have an
vehicle.
energy efficient
It's
vehicle.
when they buy the Teslas. That's when it's expensive.
You could condition that. No, I'm kidding.
No Teslas in the affordable units.
Stop.
Okay, so is everybody
That's just an aspect I was
comfortable? Does
suggesting.
anybody have anything else they want to share at this time? We can open it back
I have a
up. Yeah.
question. I know I'm not voting on this,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just listening. I mean, I don't know how you factor in the weight of evidence of what everybody said was very, very good against the detractors. I've come from neighborhoods where people are 4 feet away from a busy highway, and you learn to adjust. I have no idea how the economics of this works, and I don't know, and just as a new member to the board, is that our responsibility, or is that the developers? If it doesn't work, the project goes south, or maybe it doesn't get approved by DCH or other people that will look at the whole economic plan for the project.
Well,
Yeah.
the zoning should be met, and that's why they ask for waivers
Okay.
from zoning regulation. Just because a 100-year-old house is 5 feet away from a major highway doesn't mean that everything around it should be 5 feet, and if that should be part of the weigh-in. The appropriateness of the board is to try and meet zoning, and where it can't, and the waivers have been requested, they look at any of the issues that would be created due to that, and that's the board's job.
And specifically with 40Bs, we need to assess whether if we don't grant something, we're causing the project to become uneconomic. So we need to be convinced that, at least I do, why if I say, well, you know, you gotta have 10 units, no more,
Or 4 at 80%.
why does that make it uneconomic?
The one thing no one's brought up is the noise factor.
Yeah, no, that's part of the,
Oh, is that at a previous hearing that I wasn't at?
noise from traffic?
Yeah, noise from traffic and highways and
Right.
how soundproof these units are.
Well, he stated earlier tonight that the energy efficientness helps with the sound. The windows and different things like that help bar the sound from 28A. He did mention that earlier, and the board did discuss noise factors.
And these are decisions the buyers are going to have to make. And these risks are Mr. Galasso's, the price of the units. It's my analysis. What he sells these units for market rate units, is entirely his risk. I'm not concerned about it. And if people want to buy on the state highway, that's their right to do so or not to do so. So
Well, let me just counter that,
Yeah.
Paul. And I respect your decision or your opinion, but it's our job as the zoning board to enforce our zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
And the zoning bylaws have a specific yard setback, and they're asking for a waiver down to 3 feet. And I understand that there might be a mitigating factor here. The road layout is larger than the road. But it's not, that's the purpose of having a zoning bylaw, is that you are setting, or you're analyzing and enforcing it, I guess, consistently throughout throughout the zoning district. So you have people who might not be here, who live across the street, who are expecting, I think it's I want to say a 35-yard setback.
35 foot.
35 foot, yes.
Not yard.
Sorry. 35-foot setback. And so it's a waiver from that.
Yeah.
So I just think the notion that, certainly you're going to find buyers, and anyone, you'll find buyers, hopefully, for Mr. Galasso, that will buy and won't mind that setback. But I think it's our job, and it's certainly within our purview, to say, is this reasonable, and is this what we want in our town, given the zoning district?
No, I appreciate the board's
Yeah.
point of view. I know I'm in the minority.
I don't necessarily think that's the case.
Oh, yeah, no, but I just, the prescribed width of 80 feet in a real-world sense, I don't see this road being improved to its prescribed width. That's fantasy land, in my opinion. The town would bring some sort of a suit against Mass Highway if that were the case. And being unreasonable, or they'd have to show cause that it was necessary. But beyond that, I deal with Mass Highway, and I find them to be very sensitive to a community's needs. They work very closely with the communities, and that was something that was picked in 1929 by people that have passed away decades ago, and I don't think it has any relevance in today's world, given the way Falmouth has developed itself. But no, if the 3 feet bothers someone on the board, that's fine. I was just touching on the issues of how it might affect a buyer. I mean, anyone purchasing the units would do their due diligence and determine whether or not they wanted to live 3 feet from a road layout.
Yeah, but
And
anyone
if they
looking,
don't, then buyer beware.
anyone looking at that isn't gonna know. I mean,
That's what an attorney's
you know,
for.
there are, well, that's true.
They don't go over
But, I mean,
zoning.
there are people all over Falmouth that think they own to the pavement, and they
Exactly.
don't.
Right.
And you don't have to widen that road to move the pavement in the layout. There might be a reason why you want to have the exact same width of pavement, but you're going to move it over 20 feet.
Oh, definitely.
So I think it's not responsible to pretend that the land that falls within that layout is part of this development, and that provides adequate buffer. That the development has to stand on its own.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I just feel differently, that's all.
Not to beat a dead
Yeah.
horse, but just to piggyback on what you said, when and if a board grants a waiver on a 40B, one of the determining factors, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sri, is you weigh it against what benefits are being perceived through the plan. And so that's it doesn't say, okay, we need a 25-foot setback or a 35-foot setback, and that's it. I mean, given the amount of what we're giving up, is there something that's compensated adequately in the project? And so that's the determining factor for me. So Jerry had mentioned everybody's counting, the laurels of, a garage and solar panels and power plants in the garage and all these good things. And that's what, might balance, just throwing it out to the board, might balance a reconsideration of whether or not you're going to give a waiver on that setback.
I agree. There are definitely positives to this versus what has previously been approved. But to me, those positives do not outweigh 3 feet. Would it outweigh 8 feet or not? Maybe, but that's not the proposal in front of us. I just think 3 feet is very tight. It's very tight. So.
And one of the things the board also looks at is, can it be done a different way so that you don't have, like, they approved a 12-foot waiver on the previous project.
Right.
So it's in the best interest of the town. There's a little bit more criteria than just, does this outweigh any, just, for edification. I'm not saying anything about the project.
Attorney Freeman, so you heard our thoughts.
Sure, I appreciate it. And number one, I sincerely appreciate the discussion. They're logical, intelligent questions, a good discussion, and I sense, and I appreciate, I'm sure Michael does, that you're trying to work with the applicant. So, I commend you for that type of discussion. So a few points, and hopefully succinct. On the final point, which is a little more legalistic, there's a balancing of, as Mr. Cool said, of the benefits against the strictness of the particular bylaw, but also don't forget, and this plays into your housing, affordable housing plan and master plan, you also, under the statute, have to weigh all of your local concerns, which means the bylaws that are being asked to be waived, against the regional housing need. And so I just point that out. It doesn't mean, oh, okay, end of discussion, you do whatever the applicant says. Of course not. Your type of a logical and intelligent and considerate discussion that you're talking about, that's appropriate. But it's more than just within the town in terms of the bylaws. It's balancing the need for regional housing, which is where so much of Michael's presentation that I thought was great relates to that issue. The town's plans, the town's goals, the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Committee, the Planning Board sitting as Housing Committee, the Selectmen, and then DHCD. So then on the more moving parts, details of the things you're considering, I see them as three basic items. One is the density. Two is the question of the closeness to the front yard, or to the front property line, and the question of possibly moving it back and where the road would go. And then the third is the economics, and obviously they correlate to a degree. On the question of how close should it be, Michael may stand up when I'm done and correct me, but if we got the 12 units and, essentially more or less what we've applied for, but you wanted to ask for some modification, he can correct me if he thinks I'm wrong, but I think that there's a possibility to work with you folks on that and with the fire department. Maybe not moving the road to the back, but that idea of keeping 16 on the side and 14 at the back, that would pick up a couple of feet. So that's one point. The second point on the question of density, it's not just because it's 40B. I mean, that's too general. Certainly it's a legitimate thing for you to look at. But I think in this case, with all of the benefits, this is where the balancing in terms of the net energy benefit, the redesign, which you like, that's where, there's a benefit to the extra density. And so I will just leave it at that. It's a legitimate concern up to a point, but I think you have to really see that there's some really substantial adverse impact from the 2 extra units, and that's the thing. There's already 10 units there, so you really would have to have a legitimately very heavy adverse effect on some type of local issue by virtue of not 12 units, but by virtue of 2 additional units. And then on the point which, again, I sincerely respect, and serious commentary on the question from the gentleman at the end on the economics. Mr. Foreman was asking about that, so I would say a few things. When you're questioning how you should deal with the approvals and the waivers, in that circumstance, it is appropriate to talk about the pro forma. No question there. So just a few comments. This is where I think Michael's being a known quantity in the town and working on things like the Economic Development Committee and his experience with other projects, I think that's where it is relevant in this following regard. I mean, theoretically, you have the right to send it out to peer review and get somebody else to look at it and all of that. If you really felt you needed to do that, we would hope that you wouldn't do that just because what I'm about to say and also just more time involved. But, 2 things. His pro forma is with real experience. He's very experienced. He just didn't make it up. And that's both from his experience in town and all the things he's done and working with the other committees in town, like the Affordable Housing Committee. I know, and I know I'm an advocate, but I've done so many of these developments, and I know when a pro forma is reasonable. Do I go out and do the takeoffs to do a construction estimate? No, but I know the typical ranges. I know what the agencies see and what the agencies approve, and I have a sense when it's realistic. So, that is something. Thirdly, again, not that you don't have a right to ask if you see something glaringly wrong. I mean, absolutely. But DHCD has looked at it. I'm not saying that they did their own exact, precise takeoffs on construction and all of that, but they know the general range. And we submitted that pro forma to them, the comparative pro formas. So I think, again, that the asking about it to make sure that there's a need for the additional units is appropriate, but I think that having asked and having listened to me and Michael, that you should be comfortable that it's a reasonable pro forma. And again, it's at the 12.5%, which is a little below the normal range, but, you know, it's a reasonable amount. And that ties into a couple of other things in terms of even the ground coverage. Yes, it's more, but again, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but with slightly larger units, you know, that relates to the price, obviously. So, you know, there's connections between some of the moving pieces here. And in terms of, you know, ultimately the question also of 10 versus 12 and the 110% income versus another 80%, that's almost pure economics, because knowing the pro forma as I do, and as Michael has said, and I believe demonstrated, it just certainly wouldn't work, you know, if there's another 80%. And we had a very heavy discussion with the selectmen about that. Again, I'm not saying that just because they approved it this way that you must. I think it has a big bearing, however, on your deliberation, because that's where he made the commitment that, yes, he would do the 110% as a fourth unit, but he would make, and this would be a condition in any approval, that he would make the effort to apply for CPA funds or Affordable Housing Trust, I think it is, funds rather, to buy down to another 80%. So all those factors come together. And I guess the final point, I'll leave it at this for the moment, you know, talk of just keeping it at 10%, I mean, theoretically, you can do that. You can deny the request for 2 more units, but, you know, the project simply won't happen. I mean, that's not a threat. I just asked Michael again. I mean, the reason he put so much time and effort in to what he's done, starting with 12 units, is because the 10-unit project, it just doesn't work. And it certainly doesn't work with the extra energy things and larger units and better design, which is also more expensive to construct. So it doesn't work even pretty much the way the Covey plans were, but it certainly doesn't work with the much improved type of design things that Michael's talking about. And again, I say that just as a fact, you know, because I think you should take that into consideration. We would think it would be wrong, obviously, if you denied the request for the additional units, but, you know, again, I appreciate all of the points and the reasons why you're talking about that, and I just state factually, there'd be no project if it was only 10 units. So, Michael, you may want to correct me on something and also add some things.
If I may, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Peter. Nothing to correct you on, really. But let me mention a couple of things. First of all, we keep on talking about 3 feet, and there's only 2 of the buildings are 3 feet back. They're the ones sort of in the center, just to the right of the play area. So the building at the far end is 7 feet back, and that's to the porch. And I know I said that the building overhangs the porch, but on this plan, it's clearly shown that the building, this is the building line, and the porch is outside the building. So I try to look on the plans to see if we can get a clarification, but if that's not clear, I can...
Yeah, I would say it's not, because my understanding was that this was a porch that stuck out, and then looking at these plans, it looks like there's no overhead.
There's no section there that shows that,
Yeah.
clarify, but we can clarify it with the architect. So we're talking about 2 buildings at 3 feet, 1 at 4, and the other 3 are at 7 feet or more. And the building itself is set back 13 feet. The closest is one that's 9 feet. So even if we were to move the buildings back, and we could move them back, which I don't oppose looking at, do we think that the noise is going to be any less by moving a building back 2 feet? Do we think there's going to be any less cars on 28A because we move a building back 2 feet? So I have no problem looking at moving the building back and see if we can tighten up the buildings a little bit to get a little bit more of a setback. I do have a problem moving the street from the back to the front, because then we're really turning the building and the buildings, we're turning their backs to the neighborhood. I think that's a very poor design, that we then would be looking at nothing but garages in the back of buildings. I think the neighborhood is 28, Facen's 28, And I understand the need to move it, but I think that would be a poor design decision. I think the community would be more upset about us building buildings that have nothing but garages that face their buildings across the street. So I would say that we need to work with trying to reduce the width of the lane, and that's really what it is, behind the buildings, and maybe tighten the buildings up a little bit to get the setback that you're looking for. But I wanted to make sure, we keep on saying 3 feet. Not all the buildings are 3 feet. There's a few of them that are, there's some that are 4, but the buildings themselves, if we clarify the porch, themselves sit back anywhere between, the closest is 9 feet, one in the middle, to the maximum of 13 feet. So that's what I would suggest, is that we try to keep the loop road around the back. I think it would be a big fight with the fire department. We've already put the fire hydrant in the back to move the road and put it in the front, and look towards moving the buildings back a little bit. As far as the density and the economics, it's very straightforward. We're trying to amortize the cost of the project, the cost of the land, the cost of many things that are set over more units. That helps us lower our cost. The additional square footage that we're putting in the units, and there's some of my construction friends in the audience here tonight, but adding that volume is not as costly, because we already got the plumbing in there, we already got the kitchen in there. We're adding space in basically the living room and a little bit in the bedrooms, and that's cheap space, but it's expensive space to our selling point. You know, there's a big difference between selling a 3-bedroom that's 1,400 square feet and one that's 1,700 square feet, and we do need to get as much as we can. We keep on talking about the 595 units. Remember, those are only the 3-bedroom units. The 2-bedroom units are 495. You know, if we have 4 affordable units, those are going to be sold before we even start construction. I mean, there's such a demand for those units. So really, we're talking about, there's a concern over possibly 5 units that are priced at $595. And we think with the quality of the buildings that we do and the energy efficiency, there are no buildings that are like this in our community. And this is what the market is looking for, especially a market that we're going to probably sell to folks that will be coming out of large homes in the Megansett area, or they're coming down from Boston looking for a second home that's very convenient for them. You have no maintenance, and it's energy efficient. That's what people want these days. I think we can meet those price points. So I would say that we would like to work with your staff and with the fire department, the town engineer, to see what we can do, and our architect, not only the town, to see what we can do to increase that front setback, because that seems to be a concern. The 12 units are very important. I think it would be I don't want to say it will doom the project, but the economics just won't work out. We need those 2 additional units. We need them to amortize our cost, our land cost, what we paid for the property, which was below market rate when we bought it. But amortizing all those costs over 12 units versus 10 allows us to provide that very important additional unit that everyone in the town wanted us to provide, which we agreed to. So again, thanks, and if you have any other questions, but we'd like to continue to work, see if we can get a little bit more, clear up the porch issue. If we need to come back to you the next meeting to have those issues resolved, then we're available to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I can schedule a meeting with engineering, fire, and the architect before, if the board wants to continue this, that would be something that I could do to.
I think that
Get
would be
things done.
great, but I know Ken has just a question.
Well, I mean, actually, Michael's, Mr. Galasso's comments triggered a thought in my head, which is, so if there's just 1 or 2 of these buildings that are really pushing up against the setback, do they have to all be as large as they are? You've added significant interior space. Can we cut a few feet out of the interior space and?
Sure. Yeah. We'll have our architect take a look at your suggestion.
And I think Cerie's suggestion is.
Yeah, I
think
could
the
probably get
proper
that done in a
approach.
week if that would give Michael enough time to talk to his architect, see if they can attend. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So we should continue this though, so we have a
Yes.
scheduled date.
Now, I don't have any availability, but we can make a new hearing date, May 5th. You're not going to be here?
I'm on trial.
You're on trial?
That's,
Relax at night here.
yeah. I don't know, I guess I should be out if we can get it at 6:30, and I'm gonna be tight coming from Boston, but.
Do you want to do it, would May 5th be good with you? Michael, do you think you can get things done by then?
Sure, we'll give it a try, Jeff.
Because other than that, it's June.
Okay, we'll make that.
All right, so 6:30 on May 5th, or do you want it 6 o'clock?
6:30, please, in case I have to.
6:30.
Thank you.
I never win.
We get close to being done.
So does the board want to vote on that?
Yeah, so is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing to May 5th.
Second.
At 6:30?
6:30.
At 6:30.
Okay. So that was Paul and Ed, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that's unanimous. So this will be continued May 5th at 6:30.
And Michael, I'll email you in the morning with the date, hopefully next week, to meet with the town vets, the departments.
Thank you.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes. everybody off guard. So has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from April 14th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
So, is there a motion to approve the minutes from April 14th?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 14th.
Second.
Okay, so that was Paul and then Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that is unanimous. Okay. And then board review and possible vote, application number 117-15, MPG Corporation decision. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the draft
That
MPG
was so I could play
decision
it.
that Sri transmitted, I guess?
Yes,
We had,
I did send you the final draft after comments. This is it that you guys can share.
Oh, I already have that.
and we did,
Good for you.
at the last meeting, we did direct, or vote, 4 of us to vote for Sri to draft a favorable decision. So does anybody have any questions or comments about that decision?
The comments I had, she's already fixed.
Okay, so everybody's had a chance to review,
I
and
have.
everybody is okay with the contents.
Oops.
And I did forward it to Attorney Moynihan.
The dwelling is still in here.
So,
Oh, I did fix it on the
what was the comment then?
the dwelling on,
It's
I
item
took it out and
page
put
8,
commercial.
Page 8, paragraph 7.
I think,
Paragraph F.
Oh, okay, the board finds there are adequate utilities.
I did change it to by virtue of an existing commercial use on site.
Okay.
Good.
Thank
And
you for
this
fixing that.
reflects it, the final. I'm sorry,
So,
I did that
just,
just before.
Yes.
Point out that what, so that, if, well, where did I just see that? Yeah. So there's 1,200 square feet,
You're looking at the
Plus-
existing,
right, plus 1,400, so 2,600 currently. And we're going to 35, right?
Mhm.
Just reminding everyone.
okay.
So,
Thank you, Ken.
what I always object to is that we take advantage of these nonconformities to make things bigger.
They improved a couple nonconformities, remember,
Yeah,
as well.
I know. Just saying,
Okay.
in case anyone wants to change their mind.
So is there a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the decision for MPG
As written.
as written,
Granting the special permit.
granting the special permit.
Second.
Okay, so that was Paul and then Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So that is 4-1, so the motion carries and the special permit's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly,
Yes. Oh, I'll
you will
sign it.
sign that last
Do you
page,
have
and then I'll
blue?
put in the, anybody
I
have
have
a
a
blue
black.
pen?
No, this is black.
Anybody have a blue pen?
I have a blue pen.
Oh,
Can she use it, please, to
May I?
sign?
Why does it have to be blue?
Make sure it's blue.
Because the black looks like.
Just
a
make
color.
sure.
it is blue. Thank you. I didn't even.
So ancient, that black looks like it's
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
hurricane.
next is the accessory apartment bylaw. I know some people have gotten comments to Sri, I believe. I think it makes sense to possibly write a letter to the planning board. I think we had discussed that. So I'll incorporate Mark's comments. And I think the other big comment was the by right,
Yes,
Um,
Ken's comments, yes.
Ken's comments. So unless anybody has anything else to add, well, I'll draft a letter. Jerry, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I was just confused about a few things, like within the sewer service area, the minimum lot size, you can have up to 4 bedrooms or more if there's existing. That seems to subsume the flow neutral bylaw, and I don't understand
Just
why.
in certain areas.
Well, yeah,
in Mara Vista.
yeah, it's in
Because
the,
in North Falmouth, I believe it's 3 bedrooms, Silver Beach area.
so it could be 3, I'm not
bedrooms,
sure, yeah.
mhm.
But the question is, there's a conflict between, you could say, this and the people that are allowed by right to tie into the sewer with at least 4, and if they have more than 4 bedrooms, and there's not a lot in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that gets resolved.
So you're saying, and I apologize, I don't have the language right in front of me, so you're saying that under this bylaw, they would be allowed to add an additional bedroom where one might not be allowed? Based, if you're calculating it on lot coverage only?
If you bake it, I mean,
Okay.
this would be too restrictive. I mean, you could say in the Heights, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, okay? And if you had, you now, by right, because you're tying into the sewer, can go up to 4 bedrooms.
Okay,
There are some, not many, that have more than 4 bedrooms because of what's happened in the past,
Right.
existing non-conforming, okay? They can have up to the number of bedrooms that they had, that they have as approved. So it's, you know, tying it into 10,000 square feet is,
it's kind of arbitrary.
well, it's contradictory. It may not be arbitrary. There may be a good reason for it.
Okay,
I guess the question would be, why can't people that have a 5,000 square foot lot that have allowed to go by the Falmouth bylaw, by the sewer flow neutral bylaw, to go up to 6, why they couldn't add an accessory apartment within the dwelling if they so choose to, and they could be
I
parking.
think they're putting a cap on the land size. So you're saying that regardless of what they're saying, if it, because I think they're putting it maybe 20% to add an accessory apartment separate from the dwelling unit, and a certain size for an existing dwelling unit. You're saying if they're on sewer and they have the capability to increase a bedroom, they should be able to do that.
And if they're allowed by this,
Okay.
the flow neutral bylaw.
So that would probably go under the lot size area.
okay.
And I had another issue that I understand now that this is not, they took out the words affordability because this will
Right.
not increase the affordability accounting
Yeah.
system.
The accessory apartments allowed under 24023I and 240-38I do not have a vehicle to allow them to be on the housing inventory, and that's one issue that this board has had for quite a while. So they removed that affordability, as well as the reason for 240-216J that they put in 2010 that requires monitoring of accessory apartments, which made it very hard for individuals because they lose the say in who can be in there. So that was one of the big pushes for this. I mean, a lot of people apply for it for family members. But to do it for the affordable, that 240-216J makes it very tough on them. They've got to pay for a monitoring agent, and they don't always have the say, God bless you, of who can go in there, possibly. So that was one of the issues.
So if I draft, a letter that we can review as a board, kind of incorporating everyone's comments, and I think that there's a general consensus about our concerns, and then we can review it, and then we can send it off to the planning board.
I think
Is everybody-
sending it off to them and then asking for a joint meeting to discuss.
Yes.
I mean,
Because that was something we discussed before a joint meeting.
Thank you, so we'll allow that as well.
I mean, basically, what this says is, we no longer have any single residence districts in the town.
Possibly based on the criteria that they set forth in that
Right.
document, land size,
I mean, you could
blah, 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 yeah.
put an accessory structure on every lot,
Yeah.
have an apartment.
That has a certain size, yes.
Yeah, I think that's opening the floodgates.
Me too.
It's very dangerous. I mean, frankly, we don't have the infrastructure in the town to support the population.
Well, that's one of the reasons I brought up, there should be potentially a pilot program, just covering an overlay
A
district.
pilot program, I really don't see how a pilot program will work, because then you've got to keep the 240-23I and the 240-38 in, because your pilot program is going to be limited to a certain area that may not be residential or agricultural. So then you're taking away something from people that have that right through a special permit. Because once they put this in there, I would assume that they're going to have to eliminate 28I and 38I, unless some type of pilot agreement for, I don't know how that would work. And I think they did discuss it. The planning board did discuss it.
I mean, it could be more detrimental than a 40B. That's a joke.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean?
And the other thing is, you know,
40Bs are detrimental?
Did you guys get that?
Bad timing.
if you make it by right,
Yeah,
then, you know, the neighbors have
yes,
no
that's right.
input, right?
And next thing you know, you've got Delta House on your property line.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Because what they're saying is it'll go through site plan review through the planning board, but that's not a special permit, and there's not
Site plan
always.
review.
Well, site
that's what
plan
they're saying.
review, you can make conditions in a site plan review.
Yeah, but they relate
you
to the
can't
layout of
deny-
the structures, they
Right,
don't
you
relate
can't-
to the use.
Right,
Can't
you
prohibit.
deny,
They don't
yeah.
relate to the use, you know, so
Right.
the neighbor comes in and says, I don't want a bunch of crazy kids
Yeah.
playing beer pong over there,
Right.
and,
That's where I'm going.
Too bad. All right, so we'll draft something. I was trying to put off something today at work. I would have liked to have had an excuse to draft it. I will draft something and I will send it out, and then we can talk about it. Okay, where's my, bylaw review update. Is there any?
I have not had an update lately. I do know that Brian Curry has talked. We sat at a meeting, I did explain that to the board, and I don't know if Bob Mitchell and, Richie, got back to Brian Curry as yet, so I'll send him an email and ask if there's any update, and I'll have it next week.
That would be great. Correspondence, board updates, future agenda items. Good night.